seen these guys, which are made out. This is what? 12 parts, like that. Yeah, it winds up looking really good. I kind of enjoy this.
Stuff works real well.
This is probably not like the most efficient way to make a road. You know, if I was ever going to make a bunch of them, I would not do it this way. But it's sort of neat because you get to show it to your blacksmith friends and they're like, how did you do that? Which is, of course, with the little blacksmiths. Confuser friends. Yeah, so the little tail on the end there, you can see, that's kind of my addition to the process. And I basically did that because, you know, when you do, I actually kind of screwed, there's an old one that I kind of screwed up. When you do, you know, just put it flat like that, you wind up having like a big shoulder on the inside, and that's fine for sort of slightly different version. We call that the Russian style rose. It's all out of one piece.
Greg, can I just take a photo of you holding that?
Not quite that nice.
Oh, yeah, there you go.
Mark said he's coming, but he seems to be a very distractible guy.
Yeah, so go ahead and start and
You gotta tell his wife.
Some of the Russian roses I've seen just kind of look like oil spray in the bottom. That was kind of my.
it's a really nice, yeah, I think a lot
He's
of
going to
them.
be coming over in a minute. They're just
And this
pulling
is
it
the best
out.
one I've ever seen. This really looks good.
That's nice.
Round or whatever, but honestly, I find that that's kind of what sells it as a natural form.
What kind of length are you looking for that little tail? on
That
it?
it has to be at least, I believe, an inch and eighth,
An inch?
because you want to go once around,
Okay.
and it's a 3/8 round,
Okay.
so you know, 3 times.
So you're actually doing a little bit of that.
A little bit. The cool thing, the other cool thing about that, the other thing is if it goes further than once around, it still looks cool. It's a bit of a sloppy process. Oh yeah, right. So you see I've got that, you know, it's even got like a little bit of a bulge right there. And ordinarily when I do this, since that's the first thing and I have to keep pushing this back into the forge, I want to leave it a little bit thicker than I want my end result, so I'm going to lose a lot of material. Let's see here. So next step, kind of going for like this type of a shape.
Okay.
So the next step is to make that little bend there. And you can do that, you know, over the big, over the corner, whatever. I kind of prefer just to use a bending form. And the bend wants to be on the same side as your little spiky guy. This is another thing where it's not, it's kind of, not super critical, but this is kind of the most critical part of it because you want that, the inside of this to sort of match the thickness of your material. So the inside of that bed wants to be about 3/8. This is going to, like, so the way I've got it now, right about here is going to be the center of the rose. So this is all going to be the rose leaves, and so this is going to be the outside, the end of the rose, which is this. The reason I do this tight bend is because that way it, because the inside you can sort of get away with, I want to say a cylindrical roll. You know what I mean? It doesn't really matter. I'm going to spread out the leaves later. But again, it's that underside that's going to sort of make the difference. And this little bend, you'll see once I flatten it out, it makes kind of a semicircle shape. When that gets all the way to the end, it covers up the bottom of that cylindrical roll. probably that's a super good trick.
Yeah, I've done these and I've
Got this one there.
that's why I was
So then the next step before you even start flattening out, I like to get this section to a curve. And the more curved you can make that, the better, because it's the same thing. It gets tighter, it's closer to the stem. But it's a real pain in the butt to get that curve and still get it flat. That's heating up still. My next step is just kind of, see, I got that nice tight curl there. So now I'm just going to flatten it out. You want to try and keep that inside kind of tight. And so I'm kind of just, going around the outside there, just spread it out. And, I don't want to leave the inside too thick, but if it's a little bit thicker, that's okay. Next phase there is put a little, put it like a double dog leg bend at the end. So that's this. I didn't have this step done yet, but you get the idea.
Yeah.
Like that. The reason I do that, especially with the propane forge, it makes it a lot. A, it makes it easier to get in there, and B, later when you're grabbing it like this, it makes it easier to roll. That's what you want to do. But it doesn't, once you've got, so let's just pretend there's a dog leg there. Once I've got this guy. Stretch it this way if you want. Using the cross beam, which is actually what I'm going to do all along here. But that takes a really long time. So I've sort of got one. It's already at that stage. And you'll notice, so as long as I'm not even going to worry about cleaning up the inside much. And you'll notice the outside edge is all raggedy and gross. And that's, if you wanted to spend the time to make it all nice and smooth, you definitely could. But I find it actually helps to sell the rose as an organic object. I put that one up now. I don't think I need this one.
Joshua, how much length? I mean, how long is your the part that you're kind of scrolling up there before you get to the stem?
Before you get to the bend?
Before you get to the bend, yeah.
I believe that is from the curl down to the bend about 5 inches.
About 5 inches in
Yeah,
height.
5, 6 inches.
Okay.
And then you gain, so like I start with at least 10 inches long, and that gives me a little bit longer piece than this. I think this one started as like 9.
Okay.
If you go longer, does that cause problems or shorter?
Well, the longer you go, so the longer you make this section, the bigger your rose is going to be, and therefore the more times you're going to wrap it around itself, and that's a hassle. It's going to make it more difficult, but it's also it's a style choice. I think minimum, if I was going to make like the smallest one I possibly could, might be about 3/4 4 inches of this curve. If you want it to go around itself at least twice. So here, once I've got it sort of all kind of spread out, I can go back in. And I like to put a really thin edge on the outside because if you look at a flower, they hardly ever have thick petals. It's a bit of a joke. See if I can get this in there. So, yeah. Yep.
Just talking about a flat bar and yeah.
So the next stage is to cut the individual petals on this. About to reheat that. I got one. It's already cut. And this I kind of eyeball, but generally I feel like what you want to do is you want to have about a ½ inch long on the inside, moving up to 1 inch, inch and a quarter at the very end. Because remember, this right here is going to be one thing. So you don't, and it's going to be the largest leaf. You want to go smaller from the center to bigger around the outside.
And then are you using a hacksaw for that?
You can use a hacksaw. I've also used a chisel, and I brought one I can show you with that. It takes a little bit longer. But hacksaw, bandsaw, and then filing off the corners. I did that on this one. In fact, the one sample, the other sample. That one I did not bother with the corners. Instead, I used those kind of as an element, just roll them over on themselves. Let's see, where am I at?
This is like where put it in the oven, take it out of the
Through
oven.
TV magic.
TV magic. You put it in the oven, then take it out and it's cooked.
That's not a bad idea for a blacksmithing demo. Sometimes you have this is repetitive and it takes a while to do.
Yeah, no, it is. Thank
Yeah,
you
if I
for
were-
setting it up like that. Yeah,
Well,
that's
I
great.
just figured if I was gonna do one start to finish, it takes with this method takes about an hour or 20.
And why wouldn't you want to do this in a cold forge? Heating up this little thin material over and over again.
Not to mention trying to talk while you do it.
Well, I would for sure burn it up in a bowl.
Oh, yeah. Especially when it takes an hour. I'm going to get distracted at some point.
So now maybe I will do a little bit. Okay.
This is Chekhov's tool right here, right? Like, you can't put this out and then not use
Yeah, it
it
is
at
kind
some
of check
point.
That's your multi-purpose leafing state.
That would be kind of fun to do in a demo too, though. Like, get out some really weird, obscure looking
And
tool.
just leave it there?
Like keep walking over to it, not yet.
And then never use it?
Never use it.
Alright, all I'm doing, just because this is going to be more difficult to do later, is putting a little bit of a sideways curve to it.
Okay.
So this tool that you're using, for those of us who don't know what it is,
What's that?
what is the tool that you're using?
This is, I guess, call that a leafing stake and a leafing hammer. I made this one, it's got that little bit of a curve to it because I found when you're doing replicate stuff, you tend to be pretty high. So trying to do it like that kind of sucks. I just like having a little angle. Yeah, I like the way it pegs. Yeah. That's my little bitty.
If you have trouble getting it in, that corn flips open on the side.
Yeah. That's it, man. Again, that's kind of why it's like I made this in shape. If I wasn't using tongs, then I'd be doing like that.
Sure.
For if you're using a cold forge, it probably wouldn't matter. But it makes a big difference. Going for it, though, you have to get that base next stage is going to be just to wrap it around itself. That, and I kind of left that one except for the last little bit.
Pass this around. I want to pass it up to Greg so he can see it.
But, you know, so and I'll use something like this to get started if I don't have a shoulder on my handle. Like that. Bang it. But yeah, I mean, you can actually, when you're hitting the hammering stage too, you can kind of, you know, alternate your lumps and just kind of cut in between them if you feel like thinking about it. That gives you more of a rounded shape. This is kind of the hardest part, is getting that started in the right way. If you don't get this part tight, none of the rest of it really works. What's that? I wouldn't dream. I give it to my wife on it right first. Well, actually, she gets the big one. It would make a good project for craft fairs, I think. Though. I think unless the market's flooded over there. I mean, if I were to charge, I mean, what's an hour and a half of your time worth? Yeah.
Those are two different things.
Very different things.
So you mentioned
Different galaxies.
this can go wrong when you're doing it. Like, what do you? If it's going wrong, what do you see?
All right. So I mean, the hard. I mentioned that the hardest part is getting this initial bend because you kind of want that bend to be in line with your step. And this is, you know, obviously it's going to be thin because you flattened it out, so it's just kind of tricky. But if you don't get that initial first turn really nice and tight, then everything else, when you try to apply pressure to this sideways, the center has a tendency to twist off. Because once you'll see once you get around a few times, the center holds heat much longer than the outside does. So if you're trying to like wrench on it or something, the only hot part is right there.
You'll break it off.
So you know you just want to make sure as you go around that everything's as tight as you want it.
Anything different in the procedure to aid in that?
So anything different in the procedure to what?
To aid in that not happening?
I mean, what I have done that's had some success with is, first of all, you know, I don't like this kind of stuff, but I have had some success. Once it's around, I'll take a spray bottle with water, just to put in the center, just to kind of cool that down. Now I'm just going to take a little extra time just to tighten that up. So anyway, should I continue or do you kind of get the idea?
Yeah.
That's kind of important. So you see, you know, so I just kind of continue with that, wrapping around. And I think this one, that's
Yeah, yeah.
so yeah, the other way that bike strips or something on it, it's got one.
Torch on this seems like it also did not much heat on that side.
If you have
Wait for the stick too.
well, if you had one.
Yeah, one. Which I don't. I just dream of how easy it would be to do it with one.
Yes.
I need to get a set up. I've got a little back gas.
Stand up that way.
You could probably do that, yes.
Yeah, George will definitely help me from this if that's what you want to do. But I mean, I feel like the part of the work groups of this exercise, this type of thing, you can see I'm just, I'm trying to do that as tight as I can. It's still not contacting the parent stock. But if I come back in here with like that, and this is where my nice tight bend there initially, this is where it's going to be.
That's why you set that up in advance. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
But anyway, so for me, the point of this is more of like a relaxing meditation kind of thing. It's sort of like, can I make a realistic rose, something which is obviously a complicated form? Can I do that all in one piece with no cuts? It's like origami. So, and to further that along, it's, if you want to make it more difficult for yourself, which I do for some reason, don't use a torch. touch up the inside of the bottom, if that makes sense. Right. Got this out. There we go. Now, I'm just going to kind of roll this guy on the edge. And this is where I would probably come in with a spray bottle and just hit that in the center, because the next thing I want to do is kind of tighten everything up.
Sad that they can't stay as bright and glowing as
I
they
know,
are
I
when
wish
they
they
come out of
would,
the
yeah.
water.
I know, it looks so pretty when they're hot like that.
It's going to take a lot of photographs when it's hot.
Yeah.
So anyway, the next stage is basically, that's pretty much it. The next stage is just to kind of come back in with pliers, kind of open it up. And you see right there, I actually cracked it a little bit. That's okay. That actually looks pretty good. And I should heat this up a little more. That's pretty much it.
You smooth out the inside of your pliers or anything to make sure you don't leave teeth marks?
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely an idea. I found though with the smooth, like the blacksmith's pliers, like the round nose ones, they don't get enough of a grip for this stage. since I'm only grabbing, you know, the last eighth of an inch, I mean, this is a pretty, like this is serrated, but it's pretty fine. And when you kind of slip it off, that's okay. Plus, you're going to come back in, maybe sand, maybe file, whatever your cleanup is going to be, and that'll take care of it. But again, you know, this is not, I'm not trying to make a perfect rose with this technique. If you could, I would probably have started something different. This kind of winds up looking more like a, I don't know, sort of one that's been around the block. I think that's pretty much it. Any other questions?
Thank you very much. I did too. I'm going to go home and make one. Good job. Let me take a photo of that. And you knocked that out of the park.
Yeah.
Really nice job there. I'm impressed.
Lay out all your pieces.
Yeah, if you lay out all your pieces, we can take a photo of it. That would be nice. Maybe we can
Clear all this off.
Then you get to
Yeah, or something.
you came down, you can see this.
I did that a long time ago.
Right?
Yeah, yeah.
This was
Oh
totally
yeah.
unacceptable.
I think we all do them.
Hit for the wife.
And then what you said about trying to figure out how to move it and song is really wise, because that's always the question, right?
Yeah. Send me a photo of that.
Here's the-
Some of them are.
Oh, I have not for myself.
There's a couple there that are good.
What's that?
That middle one is
A little toasty.
Found it?
found it.
There's a couple of there that
Yeah.
Yeah. I have to text that to me. If you don't mind.
Alright, next. Yeah, really nice.
That's
Nice
cool.
project. Yeah,
Do you
really
want to
nice
give
project.
them feedback, comment? Yeah.
I don't have your number.
I would
Oh,
say
that's right now.
check
Oh,
and see if the
okay.
audience has questions. Some during it, you know, you're going through it and you're doing a good job explaining it, but just double check where people are at. I like to a lot of times, this is what I'm going to show you. Here's me doing it. Here's what I just showed you.
Yeah, say it like 3 times. Like,
Sure.
I'm going to do this. This is me doing it. I just did this. And this is really good advice. Because a lot of times when you're doing something, you know what you're doing, but it's somebody who's watching it, it kind of goes over.
Yeah. And also, then when you forget to mention something, maybe you catch it on one of the other two.
That'd be great.
Right on.
Okay.
Yeah, most of my experience has been teaching like one-on-one, like sort of
Yeah,
apprenticeship
sure.
kind
And
of
then that's
thing.
totally different
And
than.
usually that's like, here, do this, do it again. No, you didn't do it right, do it again. That's kind of the whole process.
I didn't catch your name.
Joshua.
Hi, I'm Ben.
So in prep for this, what did you do? Did you just think through it and just did something that you're comfortable with?
Yeah, I
Did you
mean, I
write
was-
it down like here are my bullet points.
I made a very, very basic kind of little sketch of the various steps. The hardest part in figuring this out was kind of deciding just what one step was versus the next step. You know what I'm saying? Like, should I do I need this one? You know, or do I need that? I just added a couple in there and it seemed to work out all right.
Yeah, I like your storyboard. You did a good job on this one.
I basically started with, you know, I just started 4 or 5 and then stopped.
Yeah, and that also worked well in the demo where you were able to switch out and be like, okay, here we're at the next
Yeah.
bit.
But yeah, I was trying to think of like what can I do to kind of shorten it up.
Becky was saying it's like the cooking shows on TV, right?
Pull out the turkey in the oven and then you take out the turkey from the oven and it's done by magic. Yeah.
But I mean, I just thought this was a good. My wife wants me to mention. I started a subreddit called "I Made a Rose"
Oh, okay.
because it's literally a project that pretty much every blacksmith has tried at some point. And at first, it was kind of a joke. It was like, look, everybody thinks they're doing this the first time and nobody has. But then we started getting submissions, and it's like there's so many different ways to do
Versions,
this.
yeah,
There's
right.
so many different
208 members now.
A real thing. Yeah, like, oh wait,
208
this is a thing
members
now.
for his subreddit.
That's awesome.
The 200
That
members
subreddit
don't
you'll find
notice
is
that.
pretty much entirely me just telling people, hey, you should post this. It's quite a collection.
Very cool.
Yeah, very cool. And a big improvement over the basic Russian rose too.
100%, yeah.
Well, I've been making these for a long time.
This feels like it could be an article on Hammer's Blow.
Yeah, actually,
Oh, yeah.
Really good.
would be willing to write it up and publish it because this would be great and what you already have the storyboard photos for it, so it just needs to be written.
Yeah.
So if you're willing to do that, we'd love to see it in there. This is a great project.
I'd read it.
Yeah.
Well, the final photo has
Yeah,
to
I
be a
think-
presentation, so you know.
Here
You
you
in front of
go.
like happy
Yeah.
faces.
Yeah, I actually have something to send in. Just a little tip and trick thing, but